Hello and welcome to another edition of Impact TV. I'm Kevin Hilton, the CEO of Impact, and today we're joined again by the General President of the Ironworkers, Eric Dean. Eric, how are you today?
Doing well.
Good. You just came from a audience with the Pope. Tell us your reflections.
Well, I was blessed, received a papal blessing in Mass with the group, and I don't know how many people could say they've had that pleasure. And to listen to his remarks to Congress, he was meaningful. He said a lot of things, and organized labor has always stood for workers' rights, and the Pope, he articulated a vision to treat workers with dignity. He didn't specify workers, but people who are trying to raise and feed their families, that they get the dignity and respect while they're just trying to make a better standard of living or way of life. And his message resonated quite well. I was there with several other labor leaders at the courtesy of Minority Leader Pelosi, and we all walked away feeling really rejuvenated.
Good. Well, I noticed a papal glow about you.
Yeah.
Today we decided to have a discussion about impact programs, what they are and how they work. And you know, I guess the biggest gorilla in the impact program repertoire is our grant system. So what we do is we take in the contributions to Washington and Canada respectively, because Canadians' funds stay in Canada, and then they're granted back to the regions at 20% annually. Now, Eric, you were an Impact regional co-chair in the Chicagoland area, which also covered the St. Louis District Council. How did that figure into your plans annually?
Well, initially, when Impact started, our district council participated at the fullest level. Everyone got in at the full 1% at that time. And we kept writing grants that we thought were of need specifically for our region. And I had a seat on the national board, and the national board just couldn't see the need for what we had, because they were trying to think too big. It's maybe the 40,000 foot view versus boots on the ground view. So we came back and collaborated, and they decided to remunerate that out of originally it was 15 cents of every dollar collected was returned back for discretionary spending. And then it improved when the economy got in the tank. We raised the numbers to 20%. And I believe that what it gives is it gives the Impact RAB board, the Regional Advisory Board from the area, the power to spend 20% of the money in manners that in the north and the south and high density areas, the needs are different. Mm-hmm. And we allowed us to do a lot of welding lab training improvements. We had a lot of established local unions, but with old and aging infrastructure, and we were able to offset or share some of the cost, so that the contractors always needed that stable of welders, and for many other things. We were one of the first, we'll talk about another program in a little bit on the on-the-job accident program, but we jumped in with both feet because we felt that was a really good program. But by having the discretionary spending and the resources available, it offered us the opportunity to fund various initiatives.
So for the benefit of our audience, in the region, so you covered RAB4, which was Chicago and St. Louis District Councils. It's governed by a joint labor management committee. How did that work in your case?
Well, originally I was aligned with the Michigan District Council, and then we got realigned, and they got aligned with the North Central states. But what we had was a labor and a management co-chair. It was myself and Alyssa Snyder from Danny's Construction. And then the management folks tried to target various people in different disciplines. We tried to have a reinforcing contractor, a steel erector, Miss Metals, a finished metals. And we spread around the pool between Chicago and St. Louis and various business managers. And then that way everyone kind of can establish the need, and there's a vetting process, and you decide what's fair. And later on we've evolved where the grants are now approved electronically, and they're web-based rather than trying to chase down myself. I was traveling as the Chicago District Council President and the Ornamental Director, but so too was Alyssa Snyder in her roles and responsibility with Danny's Construction. And I had to send checks to get signed over in San Francisco or wherever she was, and I had to be 3 days ahead of where she was traveling.
Right.
So
Alyssa being the management
Alyssa,
co-chair.
yeah, she was the co-chair serving with me at that time. But the grants, now the process is really, it seems like it's seamless, but many of the members don't know that where the money goes. And so what I wanted to do was take this opportunity just to layer out an overview of impact. And one of the greatest things is that 20% stays home, and is currently it's 20%.
Sure.
20 cents of every dollar stays home for them to vote on and spend at the discretion that benefits both, say, like in my case, it was Chicago and St. Louis District Council,
Sure.
and its employers.
And like General President alluded to, you've got to remember that it can be changed by the Board of Trustees, which is also joint labor management that meets 3 times a year. If they deem it, they can raise it if they need to, or lower it, depending on the economic circumstances.
Initially, we started an impact by all the members. It was falsely branded as a drug-free workforce program, which is an element of what we do, but it is not the single defining thing. It is probably the single thing that most members identified with. Why don't you talk about the evolution of the start of the drug program and where it's at now?
Well, that's interesting because it has been, an equal branding piece for us. It was always known, Impact was always known as a drug testing program, to the point where we'd have people call and say, am I current in my Impact? It's one of very many programs we have. But it was interesting the way it did evolve because it was a need, and it still is recognized as a need in the construction industry. It's a standard at this point, regardless of where you're working. So we started off with a national program that was run by a third-party vendor, and it was largely focused on them coming in to a local union and doing group testing. And of course, that's only as good as the day you're tested, as well as sending out postcards to the membership. And it served its purpose. Everything is an evolution, but we had to evolve beyond that. So about 3 years ago, we undertook the titanic task of reinventing that program. And now, again, it's run completely electronically online. It is geared towards a 10% random draw throughout the year, 10% every month. So theoretically, I'm not a math magician, but I do play one on TV. You get 120% of a random draw every year based on the last digit of an employee or an iron worker's social security number. We've found that has been adapted by the contractors and the local unions, and it's worked very seamlessly and flawlessly.
One of the things that we have is drug testing is still a mandatory subject of collective bargaining. So we offered a template program with a database so that it was retrievable, so that employers could readily find out whether a person was eligible or not. But it's still, there's owners, and I don't mean owners of steel erection companies, I mean owners that won't let us on site. So it's servicing the needs for us to take and get to work and deploy our members faster. And that's, is it perfect? Probably no program is perfect, but it's readily accepted in the construction industry.
And it's good, it's efficient. So Eric, one of the programs that we're probably proudest of is the Impact Off-the-Job Accident Program, where it offers a direct benefit to the iron worker who gets injured away from work. Could you tell us a little bit about your impressions of that?
Well, I was one of the first co-chairs to sign up for the Off-the-Job Accident Program when we were aligned with St. Louis, and I remember thinking, why aren't other people getting signed up for this program? It is iron workers pooling their funds and assets together and taking care of injured workers who got injured away from work. The contractors sometimes have this thought that workers would sometimes carry their off-the-site injuries to the job, so it gives them the confidence that they're not going to get work comp cases that were maybe misapproached, or the approach isn't where it needs to be, as far as the emphasis needs to be on the recovery of the worker, and the worker's looking to get paid, so they think every injury is suspicious. And by nature, we know a lot of our members get hurt away from work and don't do that. This gives them the confidence, and it gives us an insurance policy to take care of our injured and sick brothers and sisters.
Yeah, we're very proud of that direct program.
And
that
pretty soon we're going to have all the locals will be participating.
By the end of this year, every local in North America will be participating in the Impact Off the Job program, and we're very, very pleased about that.
And our first jump into it was about 6-7 years ago. So in 7
Taken a
years,
long time.
yeah, that's okay. I'm
Yeah.
pleased with the progress.
And we did, when that initially kicked off, we used an insurance carrier, and we morphed away, evolved away really into a self-administered program. So that's even more value added. Let me ask you a little bit about our marketing efforts. I've heard the phrase, and many of the viewers have heard those phrases. Iron Worker, the apprenticeship program, and our training is the best kept secret. It drives me absolutely nuts. Tell the audience about what we've done to mitigate that through our marketing efforts.
Well, I use this corny saying as a lot of times it's like fishing in our own aquarium. We don't go very far, and all we do is tell ourselves about the value of the programs that we have to offer. So one of the issues is with marketing, we're able to go to the end users, to construction journals, to decision makers, to talk about either our welding certification programs, the skills our members possess, the volume of the signatory contractors that are available,
Safety.
that collaborate,
Yeah.
what our safety message is. And by doing that, instead of putting it in the Ironworker magazine for only us to see, we're getting out where there are decision makers, and we're getting in front of them. We sponsor large group meetings at the American Institute of Architects. We sponsor and market at large construction user groups such as CURT. Mm-hmm. And I believe getting outside past the Ironworker Union and the Ironworker employer, we need to talk to people who are the purchasers of our services and tell them what we're doing. And so it's either face-to-face marketing, it could be sponsoring a portion of a meeting, it could be sponsoring in their journal, but I think it's getting the message out.
I was recently at an industrial owner forum, and that's where you'll see the big owners there, the refiners, the automakers, and that like. And our message is finally starting to take hold because they're recognizing us for the value and the brand as well. And I think it's important for everybody watching today to realize that every impact program is designed either through a straight line or a dotted line to ironworker man hours. It's just that simple.
I agree.
So there's another program that predates me by a long time, and that's our project tracking programs. We now use Reed Construction data and industrial info. How did you guys use that when you were in the region?
We were one of the first users. Like I told you, RRAB jumped in with both feet with almost every program that Impact had to offer. And at first, we gave all the bidding subscriptions just to the labor leaders and the local unions to monitor bid results and upcoming bid projects so they can converse with the employers. Later on, we were able to broaden that and pay for seats for a smaller contractor who couldn't avail himself to the cost of that bidding subscription. So it afforded them more opportunities to see what the upcoming projects were and where they could bid and fill in gaps into their backlog of work. And, it's not the end all, the be all. Some of our major big employers, they know how to find work. They've got business development folks. But a majority of them are small folks. And so it creates a dialogue between the business manager, business agents, and the employers and the subcontractors, steel erectors and rebar contractors to find them targeted work in the geographical regions where they work.
Sure.
Good program.
And again, as you're trying to follow along, hit our website, impact-net.org. Right in the middle, there's a tab called Programs, and you'll see all of these listed there. We're completely transparent. We offer a number of certifications. One that may be near and dear to your heart, since the organization is actually based in Chicago, is AISC. If you analyze the data of projects that require AISC certification for either the fabricator or the erector, it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Speak to how we penetrated that market, and I can fill in the blanks on how we physically do it.
Well, many of the certifications, they validate the skills that either our members possess or the contractors possess. And they're a requirement to secure work. And what we do is we try and use that funding so that, say, a steel erector gets AISC certification or a fabricator, and giving them the distinct advantage to prove that their business plan is separate and distinct from just your average mom and pop company.
Right.
They're professional companies, they're competent in what they do. And whether it's that certification or any of the other certification programs we have, every one of those is usually a third-party program that validates what the industry demands from not either our workforce or our employers.
We're in the process of working with the Canadian Institute of Steel Construction to make sure that our Canadian brothers and sisters have those same advantages. And I think that's a good segue just to remind the audience that Canadian funds through Impact stay in Canada and the American funds stay in America.
Well, one of the issues that we started with was when we developed the Impact program, it was primarily U.S.-based things. And at the 2006 convention, 2011 convention, excuse me, the delegates decided that they wanted to participate equally in the labor management program. So that meant Canadian inclusion. So that meant we really had to reshape our focus and come up with separate and distinct Canadian programs. And one of the things on moving money over the line back to the U.S. and back to Canada, it's costly.
Right.
So we make sure that we keep the funds separate and distinct, and we account and reconcile those funds, and then we keep building those programs. So, for example, that Canadian certification program, the Canadian Welding Bureau,
Right.
we didn't have that developed before, but we're developing that partnership as we go.
Yeah, there's a lot of great opportunities north of the border. Let's talk a little bit about some new initiatives. Right off the bat, we've got our partnership with BCSP, the Bureau of Certified Safety Professionals. General President Wise, Bill Brown signed that initiative at last year's Impact Annual Conference. We are working with them, and to this date, you may not have these most recent numbers. We have over 300 iron workers that now carry the Safety Trained Supervisor certification, which is administered through the BCSP. Tell me about how you see that playing out in the marketplace.
Well, we talked a little bit in the last episode about the importance of that. It's extremely important that the iron workers manage and supervise safety, and the employers are recognizing that the iron workers have just as much safety knowledge as, say, an industry person without the specific knowledge of the steel erection or the reinforcing industry or the curtain wall industry. So this BCSP program allows us to train our workers, validate them, and then the employers recognize the supervision and task them with looking after the workers.
It may also provide a jumping off point for an extended career where an iron worker transitions into the safety professional.
Oftentimes when a worker gets more experience, they gain more knowledge, they know what to and what not to do. So they make natural safety professionals, somebody with some time under their belt, been around the block a few times for sure.
There's another new initiative. It's still in its beginning stages. It's not without controversy, but it's the Gulf Coast Business Development Initiative. And many of the things that we've talked about here today have never been tried by any other organization. There is no roadmap. We employed the services of Magnus Consulting and a business development role to work with our contractors to penetrate markets in extremely low density areas. Tell me about the results you expect to see and what we've seen so far.
Our membership is relatively low and our signatory contractor base is relatively low in the Gulf Coast. For about 20 or 30 years, the petrochemical industry in the north, they use our contractors regularly and our members benefit greatly from that. In the south, It's just a different animal. So we decided not to take no for an answer, and we've targeted the uptick in energy work that's abundant in the Gulf Coast industry, and couple that with a shortage of all baby boomers, both union and non-union, leaving the workforce. We're taking advantage of knocking on every door, every owner's door, and building the business relationships for our signatory contractors to secure work. And what the simplest thing is to take northern contractors who have already met the safety metrics and invite them to come down and work there and just learn the different dispatching mechanisms, but to build confidence that the Ironworkers International, the Texas Mid-South District Council is going to be their partner, and the Southeast District Council as well. And they're going to be their partner in both training, recruiting, finding existing workers, and those employers do not have to fear anything other than their normal bidding practices and the risks they take in securing any job in the same scope, whether it be in the north or south.
One of the fun parts of this program is you can look at the numbers. You know, a lot of these things, if you look at the off-the-job accident program, we know it's a success, but it's hard to gauge. With something like this, that is that hard line direct to ironworker work hours through our contractors, and that's very, very exciting. I think a good byproduct of that is the program that has been adopted by the Southern Ohio District Council, Bill Woodward, where we're working with his contractors, as well as in the Southeast District Council, where Larry Brown has asked us to work with the Atlanta local union to develop their own business development plans. So basically, we're not just bringing in a consultant that will have a job for life. It's a knowledge transfer program.
They're targeting known entities where we're not getting much market share,
Right.
and they're identifying and implementing a strategy to get their employers to secure the work so that we can get our members on that work.
Once we engage that truly effectively, we'll never have enough iron workers. I guarantee that. Another program that we developed a number of years ago, and it has just grown its own legs and evolved very dramatically, is our contractor courses. Tell us about the outset of that, and I can fill in on where we've gotten to today.
I would tell you that we recognize, I mentioned it before, a mass exodus of baby boomers. You look around an aging population of our membership, we always take apprentices to replace them. So we can account for how many people are going to leave. We look at our contractor community, and we don't have as many young employers as we do old employers. So we decided that we needed to reinvest in succession planning for either companies to train and groom new people or train people who had a wish and desire to be in business, and we would tell them the pitfalls and everything it takes to go into business. And we believe that investing in a strong contractor base gives us more opportunities for our members to go to work. And a lot of ironworkers are really good at the craft and the trade, but they're not so good on the business side. So we send them back to school and polish off their business skills. They're able to reconcile their finances better, be better business people, and it's just investing in ourselves. It's self-perpetuation.
It was really interesting. We ran the Contractor Academy in Ann Arbor this past July, and we had a classroom full of 30 iron workers learning these different aspects, and some will go on to create fair contractors, and some will say, well, this is just more than I bargained for. But at one of the coffee breaks, an iron worker out of Denver came up and approached me, and he said, hey, do you run Impact? And I said, yes. And he said, I need to talk to you. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. And he said, I just got to let you know, I've learned more in the last 4 days than I have in the last 5 years. So that's a great testament to what we're doing. And the fact of the matter is we don't want a contractor to go into business on their own and fail, as they typically do in about 18 months, and stick the various funds.
Oh, the delinquencies of fringe benefits
Absolutely.
is a thorn in our side, so anything we can do to get contractors on the profitable side of the business is good.
Amen. And even competition. Now, there's a couple of other programs that deal strictly with leadership, and you can't have a great organization without great leaders. So we created the Impact Leadership Experience for higher level iron workers and higher level contractor leadership, as well as developing the ironworker superintendent training. Can you speak to that?
There is a shortage of people that either need to run our jobs, be superintendents for our companies, and the ones who have attained those positions, sometimes they have skill gaps, myself included. So the leadership experience does a very good assessment of people's natural abilities, what they're good at, and what they're not so good at. And then they're able to coach you through what you need to compensate for, what you need to look for so that you could be a better leader. Then as far as for the employers, many of the employers say, I don't need another 100 iron workers unless I have the supervision to run them. So it translates in the same thing. The businesses need leaders, our local unions need good leadership and business skills, and then it drills down. Our job sites, we need more supervision. And as we're seeing this mass exodus of skilled senior people that know how to run work leave our business for natural retirements, we need to replace them. And we're going to have an opportunity where these millennials and Gen Xers are going to be the youngest superintendents, foremen we've ever seen in the construction industry. And so we're investing in them, and we're trying to force the training on them to say, it's not just a buck and a truck or here's the blueprints anymore. There are some natural things that you need to do in foreman and supervisory training, and it's getting rave reviews. Everyone who takes it says it really benefits them great.
Every industry event that I've attended in the last 2 years, that's all the industry bigwigs and experts want to talk about is supervision at the job site, and more than just supervision, trained, capable supervision, because they know how incredibly important that is. And it's always such a great testament that we can point to the leadership experience, the superintendent training, and the foreman training that every iron worker gets, and demonstrate to the industry that we're leading in that capacity. Again, another straight line to iron worker man hours.
One of the questions that comes up regularly as I travel is, who works for Impact? What's the staffing? So obviously you're the CEO. We have regional directors who are iron workers who we've hired, and they work in various parts. We got North America chopped up.
Right.
What other areas besides the office staff does Impact focus on?
Well, we focus in a couple of different areas. In our North American office, we have Dr. Cindy Menchez. You've probably seen her on Impact Webcast before. She focuses on education and training. We have Cindy Quiros, our programs manager. She'll deal with some core programs and administration, but she's also morphed into coaching our contractors through various business functions that they get involved in. She just recently got a contractor out of Southern California, worked with them to get their disadvantaged business entity certification, which is a huge, huge advantage to our contractors out there. And then we have professional marketing and communication staff. Joe Matos heads up marketing and branding, along with Deanna Rich, who does a lot of the writing. And then they're supported by just a few other people in our office. Susan Avery on the website, Dave Fusen deals with finances, Elaine Darby and Elizabeth Springer work on administrative stuff. And then, of course, we have our other ironworker-related professionals, such as Chris Berger, who deals with prevailing wage, and Steve Rank, who works in a standalone department with the safety department.
Both General President Hunt and General President Wise, they saw that some of our programs, while they were ironworker programs, needed to be avail themselves to the employer side too. And the Davis-Bacon was clearly one with Chris Berger. He helps many of the local unions with compliance doctrine as far as it relates to Davis-Bacon or prevailing wage. Many of the contractors need assistance as they're bidding jobs or after they've been awarded jobs. So we shifted Davis-Bacon as an autonomous ironworker department under Impact so that the contractors could avail themselves to Chris and his knowledge base. On the safety side, safety is our members' responsibility, but it's ultimately it's the employer's responsibility. So making Steve available, not only Steve Rank is our executive director of safety, making him a subset of Impact, it avails him not only to workers' needs, but the employer's needs so that they can be compliant. And probably a big secret is that the National Training Fund and all the apprenticeship curriculum and delivery instruction is all funded through the Impact budget. So many people I find myself re-explaining where does the money go, and so I just wanted to take this show to give both our members and the contractor community and anyone watching an opportunity to understand how far and deep and wide the program is and how many different layers of support it touches.
It is wide, and it just as a footnote to that, we have a standing agreement with an insurance expert. Many of our contractors deal with just hair-raising insurance issues. We needed that level of expertise to hand them off to an expert that can work through comp, GL issues, as well as people who track down the contractors' demographics so that we can sell them to the market. The number one search on our website is general contractors looking for our contractors. We've got to have those demographics to be able to do that.
Well, one of the issues that I also want to further explain so people had a better understanding is the governance. So we established a national board, and out of that, there are 13 regional advisory boards. There's a labor and a management co-chair that sit on that board. So it's a pretty big board. There's 26 decision makers, and then there's 3 at-large contractors, and the 3 general officers match up. So we make national policy, and we do the discretion, set the budget, and do all the things that we talked about in this show. And then we defer 20% of that budget to discretionary accounts, and those 13 regions, if you check the website, you'll be able to locate where they're at. But they're either 1 or 2 district councils lined up with labor leaders from that area and the signatory employers from that area.
Yeah. So, we've got a long way to go still and a short time to get there, as the old song says. But I think if there was one thing that I could sum up about Impact, and I've said it at least 2 different times today, is all of our efforts are geared at the growth of the ironworkers and their contractors. Does that make sense to you?
And that's the mission statement of Impact, and I hope that we'll have further shows to explain different layers and elements of what we're doing. But I just want to give an overview because oftentimes you get so immersed in how it runs, and since I've been here since day one, you take for granted we got a lot of new members,
Sure.
Got new employers, and a lot of people just haven't always read every magazine article or journal that talks about the different programs that we're doing and how we do them.
Indeed. So that's Impact in a nutshell. We're so happy you joined us today, and look for us in future editions so that we can drill deeper down on these topics. And keep in mind that if you need to get in touch with myself, the regional directors, or anybody around the country associated with Impact, by all means, feel free. Contact us through the website. Call us on our telephone number. We're available to you anytime, any day. Thank you so much for joining us again. Again, thank you, Eric. I'm Kevin Hilton, the CEO of Impact.